Are you targeting roles such as fabric data analytics or data architect? If you're preparing for interviews in these fields, today's video is a must watch. In this session, we will be diving into essential topic, designing scalable semantic models. This is key for anyone working with data models, especially if you're looking to master tools like Power BI and DAX, which are crucial for reporting and data analysis. We will walk you through creating flexible and scalable data models using DAX functions, calculation groups, and field parameters. These tools allow you to optimize your reports and manage complex data scenarios with ease, whether it's dynamically selecting different fields or applying time intelligent calculations. But that's not all. If you want to master these skills and become an expert in data modeling, you're in luck. We have got an amazing opportunity for you to join our free Azure Data Masterclass, where we will cover everything from basic data manipulation to advanced strategies in Azure Data Engineering. So this is your chance to gain hands-on experience and get ahead in your career. So don't miss out. Register now through the link in the description below. Plus, today's video is part of our Azure Data Job-Oriented program, which has helped learners like Amit and Simran land top roles like Data Architect and Principal Data Architect at leading companies. So let's jump right into the video and start building your skills.
So let me create a new workspace. We're going to give it a name, Day 19 Fabric Workspace. And let's put it inside the trial, right? The Fabric trial, and let's create our workspace. Then we already know that when you create a new lake house, let's create a lake house or a warehouse. Whether you create a lake house or whether you create a warehouse, you get a default semantic model with both of them, right? So let's create a lake house. Here we say I want a lake house. Let's give this lake house a name like LKH01 lake house and create. And a lake house will be created. A semantic model called as a default semantic model will be created. And it will also create for us the SQL analytics endpoint, which is read only, right? So it is preparing all those things. You can see the SQL analytics endpoint read only is under construction. Our lakehouse is done. And now we can see that the SQL analytics endpoint is also ready. This is read only. We know that this is read only. This allows us to query our delta tables lying in the lakehouse, right? And we can do reports, we can do visualizations, explorations, we can do queries, views using the SQL analytics endpoint. Now, if we go back to the workspace, we can clearly observe that here we have the semantic model. Right here is the default semantic model. Right here is the default semantic model, which means it gives us an out-of-the-box semantic model, right? Default semantic model. So whatever the delta tables we create over here will go into this model automatically if we enable a setting on the SQL analytics endpoint. So here is our SQL analytics endpoint, which allows us to query the delta tables, read only SQL analytics endpoint. You cannot do inserts, updates, and deletes using this SQL analytics endpoint. So if we were to look at the settings of this SQL analytics endpoint settings, if we look at the settings of the SQL analytics endpoint, we can clearly observe that there is an option which says default Power BI semantic model, which means it talks about this guy, right? Default semantic model, default Power BI semantic model. If you go inside that, there is a setting, right? It says synchronize the default Power BI semantic model. And please observe its default setting is off, which means it is not synchronizing. It's off by default because obviously all the tables in the lake house, all the delta tables in the lake house should not go into the semantic model. All the tables, bronze, silver, and gold, are not meant for reporting. There are few tables and views in the lake house that are really required for reporting. I don't want all the tables in my lake house and all the views in my lake house to be loaded into the semantic model by default, right? I would like to select those tables. I would like to tell the system that, hey, all of these 100 tables I don't want in my semantic model. Why would I increase the size of my semantic model exponentially? I need some tables that I need for reporting, right? Some views that I need for aggregations in my semantic model, not all the tables. That's why we can see that this setting is by default set to off. It says, no, I'm not going to synchronize because I know all tables are not meant to go into the default semantic model. Add objects from the SQL Analytics endpoint, which means the delta table in this lakehouse and the views, to the default Power BI semantic model. Also, update the model with any new objects that are added over here to the default SQL Analytics endpoint read only, which means the delta tables and views in the lakehouse. You can use this model to then build reports faster with the SQL Analytics endpoint data, which means whatever you query from here, whatever the views you create from here, they will also be available to you. Now, we should not enable this setting. That's why it is set to off. The option is given. You can turn it on if you want, right? But this setting should not be turned on, right? Because all the tables and views in the lakehouse are not meant for reporting. I don't want to put all the tables and the views in the default semantic model. So we will obviously keep this to off, right? We will keep this to off. But this setting appears in the examination, right? This, when you go to the DP600 or DP700, this setting appears in the examination. And it is configured on the SQL Analytics endpoint, not on the lakehouse, right? It is configured at SQL Analytics endpoint, not on the lakehouse, right? You can see it's a setting of the SQL Analytics endpoint. You go to the settings and you can say, I would like to synchronize. Okay. So then, you know that if you have a report in your Power BI desktop, you can publish it in this workspace. So here is our lake house. And you know, we need to bring the data over here and then do tables, right? That's what we know, right? That you must bring the data on which you want to develop a semantic model, and then you must do delta tables on top of them. You have to create delta tables on top of them. If you do so, please go to the SQL Analytics endpoint once you have done that, right? Here you can see SQL Analytics endpoint, and it will allow you to synchronize your default semantic model. So whatever the tables you have, you'll be able to put them into the default semantic model, or you could create a new semantic model right from scratch, right? Let's do that. Let's go back to the lake house over here, right? This is the lake house, and this is the SQL Analytics endpoint of the lake house, SQL Analytics endpoint of the lake house, and this is the lake house, right? So let's do that. Design scalable semantic model. It is through Power BI desktop. You can see they're asking us to do it through Power BI desktop. Let's do it, right? I just downloaded Power BI desktop on this new system. So we would have to follow the instructions, right? So let's download the sales analysis starter file. Here we go, right? So let me open the folder where it's downloaded. So it's downloaded over here. But as you can see, it's such a new system, right? And it's purely clean, right? So let's go over here and extract all of this. Extract it. Starter file is given from where you can start the practice, and a solution file is also given in case you do not want to do any step, you just want to see the final output. So we extracted it, and let's now open the starter sales analysis PBIX file. So they have given us a ready-made starter file to work with. So let's go to the starter file, starter sales analysis over here. Okay, here it is. We're going to log in later, right? If we want to publish, we're going to do that. Otherwise, no, I'm not going to do that. So here is our Power BI desktop, right? And we just opened the starter sales analysis over here. And we have some ready-made queries in that, right? So we have some tables that are loaded over here. We have over here the sales table. These are the columns in it. Due date, order date, right here you have the orders, profit, profit margin, total cost, total sales. These are the calculated columns, as you can see, right? You have over here product table. Here you have the date table. There is a hierarchy in there called as year, quarter, and months. There is a calculated column or a calculated measure over here, which is month key. So you have all these columns, right? You have these tables over here. The salesperson and the salesperson performance. Let's see why they have given all these tables. It will become clear to us. This is how they look like. So this is the target. This is the date table. See, it is generated using calendar auto. So it is a calculated table. And here you have product, you have region, you have reseller, you have sales, you have salesperson, salesperson performance, salesperson region. Some of the tables are hidden from the report view. You cannot use them, right? In the report view, select to make it visible. Okay, fine. Let's continue, right? So now we're going to look at DAX functions to modify relationship behavior. We'll also do calculation groups and then apply them in the dynamic time intelligence calculations. And then we will also create field parameters to dynamically select and display different fields and measures. Let's get started. Design scalable semantic models. Work with relationships. Let's open the pre-developed Power BI desktop solution, and then we can see what are the active relationships. Let's look at what are the active relationships in our model. So let's go over here, go to the model view, and here we can see that we have the full model. Okay. And what kind of a model is this? Looks like it's a snowflake, right? Why? Because it's quite clear that why is one dimension connected to another dimension? Looks like they are employee ID, employee key being referenced here, sales territory key, and the sales territory key being referenced here. And that's what goes here. So this is a snowflake. Sales performance in the targets, right? So employee ID is used here, then this employee ID, then the date is used here, and then that is used over here in the fact. So there are snowflake dimensions in this, right? This is not a simple star model. This is snowflake because it has some breakdown in the dimensions. It's not directly connected to the fact, right? So we have one directly connected, which is product. Date is being used over here as a role playing dimension. You have salesperson table. Let's keep it here. Reseller over here, region over here, but region is quite clearly a snowflake because it is broken down into multiple subdimensions, right? Target, salesperson performance means the target over here and date. All of the solid lines that we have, they represent active relationships. So all of these are active relationships, as we can see. So the reseller key in the reseller table, a single value from here, a unique value from here will filter many rows in this sales table, which is absolutely right. Dimension will filter the fact. So many to one, which means one value from here will filter many rows over here. And the direction is a single direction, right? So what is the direction? We can see from here to here. This is the direction. Now, we all know what this is, right? This is not a new thing. But there are certain relationships in the date table which are inactive. So the same date that you have over here is connected to the three things: ship date, order date, and what? Due date. And depending on that, which relationship you activate, your report will have different output. If a order is placed on December, if the order is placed on 31st of December 2024, then its order date would be in 2024, but its ship date and due date will be in 2025. So if you do any kind of yearly revenue calculation, then depending on which relationship you activate, the record gonna appear in a different year, right? If you invoke order date, then the output will be calculated in the year 2024. But if you invoke ship date or due date, then the output will appear in 2025. in the year 2025. So this is clearly a role-playing dimension. This date table that we see here is clearly a role-playing dimension. It will play different roles depending on which relationship is activated, right? So this relationship, as we can see, is between sales table order date and date table date. Single value from here, a unique value from here will filter many rows over here, right? So one to many. And this is active at the moment, right? And others are inactive, as we know that only a single relationship can be active. Only a single relationship at a time can be active, right? And this scenario is called as a role-playing dimension. Let's continue. We have just seen the model design, and there are three relationships between the date and the sales, right? The date column in the date table is a unique column representing the one side of the relationship, which means one unique value from the date column of the date table will filter many rows in the sales table. And we have just seen the many side of the column as well. So we just saw that. Notice that the relationship between the date and the order date is active, right? So if you observe, again, let's go over there. We can clearly see that this is active at the moment, which means if you place an order on 31st of December 2017, if I do yearly analysis, right, give me total revenue on an year-on-year basis, your output gonna appear in 2024. Those rows will appear in 2024. Those rows will appear in 2024 because this is active, right? Yes, so that's fine, right? The current model design indicates that the date table is a role-playing dimension. It plays a different role depending on which relationship is activated by us. Which relationship do we activate? If you activate order date, you're going to get a different report output. If you activate due date, you're going to get a different report output, because even if the order is placed on, if the order is placed in 31st of December 2017, its aggregation would appear in 2018 next year, because the due date and ship date will be in the next year, right? Which role depends on the analytical requirement. What do you want to analyze, right? So visualize sales data by date. Let us visualize this and see that how does it play out. So let's go to our report, the empty report. Let's go to the visualization system. Let's just get a table visualization on the page. And here we have the table visualization on the page. And what do they say? Select the table and then date, drag the year part only. That's what yearly analysis. Let's see yearly analysis. And then take the total sales calculated column, right? Perfect, right? So we know what they want us to do. Go to date and take this year thing, right? So let's put the year column. Tell me on the basis of the year, but what? In the sales table, I want to know from you one of the calculated column that I have, right? The total sales over here. I want to see this total sales, right? So I want to see that. Let's increase the font size a little bit. Perfect. Now you can see that. So this is what it says in the year FY 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. These are the kind of sales that you're making, and this is the total aggregate of that. But which relationship is activated? You can see that this relationship is active at the moment in the model, right? This relationship is active. The table visual shows the sum of the total sales column grouped by the year. But what does the year mean here? Year means that I am calculating it on the basis of this relationship. When the filter propagates between these two tables, it propagates on the basis of that. This relationship, I'm filtering on the basis of order date. So if an order is placed on 31st of December 2017, I'm counting it in 2017. I'm counting it in 2017. That row belongs to 2017. So it's whatever the sales you did, the sales amount for that row is, it's being counted in 2017. But if you mark it as inactive, inactive, and you turn this as active, which is on due date, right? This is on what one? Due date, right? So many to one, mark this as active on the due date. Then what would happen? It changes, right? You see it changed, right? So you can see that it has changed. Yes. 72, 42, 243, 327. Let's take a small little screenshot of this. Or we can clearly see that, right? It is changing, absolutely. Let's try it with a different relationship. Mark this as inactive, mark this as inactive, and mark this as active. Save. And now see what happens. Numbers are changed. And you can see even one of them is falling. Outside it says, I cannot see which year does it belong to, this thing. On the basis of due date, it seems. It's changing. It is playing a role. Depending on what you activate, you're going to get a different output. Let's bring it back on the basis of the order date. I would like to set that. So set this as inactive and set this as active, this filter as active. Relationships are filters in Power BI, we know that. So let's mark this as active. And now what will happen, obviously, is you're going to get a report on the basis of the order date. Now, we know that we can only activate a single relationship at a time. You cannot say, I want to mark this also as active, right? You cannot have more than one as active. You have to have a single active relationship. So then we have a DAX function, use relationships, that we can invoke an inactive relationship. You can invoke any relationship with it, but we're going to invoke an inactive relationship using use relationship DAX function. Right, we're going to use relationship DAX function. So let's now use an inactive relationship. We're going to do a use relationship, and for that we're going to be creating a new measure in the sales table. So let's go to the data pane. Let's go to the data pane, right? Report table, go to the sales. In which table? Let's see. Which table do they want? Yes, sales. Let's do a new measure and let's create the measure. So the measure is sales on the basis of ship date, not on the order date, ship date. Order date is active. I know the order date relationship is active, but I want to invoke ship date. I want to know all the orders or the sum of the orders that were shipped on a particular date, some of the orders that were ordered on a particular date, total number of orders that were due to be delivered on a particular date, different reports I want. So let's invoke this. So let's say, let's create this column, sales shipped, calculate function, which will calculate the function sum of the sales column of the sales table, invoking the relationship, which is at the moment inactive, relationship between the date column of the date table and the ship date column of the sales table in the order of the filter direction. That the unique value of the date column in the date table will filter many rows in the sales table in the ship date column. Use this relationship. Let's define this measure, sales shipped. Here we have the measure, sales shipped. Let's create more measures. Are they asking us? No, they're just saying sales shipped. Why don't we create another one? Instead of ship date, we're going to just say due date, right? So let's copy this again and let's create one more measure, right? Who's just stopping us to experiment here, right? So we're going to say, I want another measure in this table. So here is a table, a new measure, and the measure is sales due and date, ship date, and I'm going to say due date, filter on this due date, sales due date column of the sales table, right? I'm going to say that. Okay, create one more measure in this table, sales due, sum of the sales column. So now all the measures are done. Let's close this thing, right? Minimize this. So we have done both the measures, sales due, sales ship, And if you directly use total sales as the measure, whatever this is, it's going to filter on order date, as simple as it goes, because that is your filter, which is currently active in the model by default, right? So you don't need that. So let's go to the report view and bring these measures also. So I'm going to say sales shipped, right? And how it looks like. Numbers are different on the basis of the ship date column. Okay. And what about due date? And again, the numbers are different on the due date. Oh, sorry, I added the due date. Sorry. The measure is, where is it? Total sales, sales due. Okay. Sales shipped, sales due, and total sales. So this is on order date, this is on due date, and this is on ship date. Your revenue on the basis of that. Better would have been, instead of calculating the sales, we calculate the total orders. The order ID. This, I think this is the order ID, right? What is this order? Sales order number. Count unique sales order numbers, right? Count unique sales order numbers, right? Count the unique sales order numbers. But nonetheless, this communicates the concept that this is now playing the role playing dimension. It gives us a different output depending on what filter do we activate. And we activate the filter that we have over here using our DAX function, use relationship, invoking an inactive relationship using DAX function, use relationship, use relationship. Okay, perfect. Let's continue. Add it to the visual and see that how it appears. Creating measures that temporarily set relationships as active is one of way to work with role-playing dimension. However, it can become tedious when there is a need to create role-playing dimension versions for many measures. What if you had 10 sales related measures? For example, total sales, okay, average sales, median sales, right? You had more role-playing dimensions. Here we have 3 role-playing dates. What if I had 10 sales related measures? At the moment, I'm just using total sales. What if about total cost? What about another one, right? Let's say median cost, total volume, total orders. If I have so many measures and so many roles, will I invoke them like this? You're going to have to create so many measures, right? For role-playing dimensions. So this, so you're going to have to do a lot of role-playing dimensions. You're going to have to do 30. You would have to create these kinds of measures that invoke an inactive relationship on some existing measure. So this is a measure, right? Sales column. No, you cannot do that. A better way would be to create something called as a group of calculations, calculation group. Drop the calculation group on a certain measure. It will break it down on the basis of whatever the calculations you have in the calculation groups. Let's do a calculation group for time intelligence. Let's do a calculation group for time intelligence. Okay. Let's switch to the model view where we're going to get the option to do it. Model view. I'm not getting the option. Yeah, here it is, calculation group, right? Create a new calculation group. Here we say, right? So here it is. You can also do them using the tabular editor. Okay. You can also create calculation groups using tabular editor, but let's do in the Power BI itself. When we do the calculation group, any implicit measure has to be removed. You cannot have those columns in that table where you're creating a calculation group, implicit measures. An implicit measure, automatically it will say, I'm doing a sum of this or an average of this. It's going to say sigma symbol in front of the column. And we go over there in the model view and say, don't do any aggregate, don't do any summarization, don't summarize. Just a note that when you use calculation group, it will not support implicit measures. You must only create explicit measures using your DAX formulae, functions, and expressions. So let's first of all rename the calculation group to time intelligence first of all, and the calculation column to yearly calculations. So let's do it here. It's directly saying calculation item. Does it? One second. Create a new calculation group table, group column and item. If a warning window pops up, that is a creation of the calculation group. I think they are asking us, yeah, no, they're asking us in Power BI. Okay, they're asking us in Power BI. All right. Let's create this measure. I think all of this is not coming to us, right? Let's do it here first. Let's create the calculation group, the calculation item, right? We're going to rename this later, right? First, let's put that. Year to date is a calculation item in my calculation group column in my calculation group. Okay. What does it do? Whatever the measure you tell it, it will calculate it in the filter context dates year to date up to the current date. So you say total sales and you say this calculation group, it will tell you year to date total sales. Okay, this is one of the calculation item, right? I would like to rename this guy because you want me to rename. For calculation, you want me to do yearly calculations. So calculation group name, yearly calculations, yearly calculations. That's the name of the calculation. That's the name of that thing, right? Calculation column and calculation group to time intelligence calculations, time calculations. So I'm going to say, I want to give this guy a name, the calculation group a name, which is my time related calculations. Yearly calculations, which has a single item at the moment, which is year to date for the selected measure, whatever the measure you select, for that, you're going to have that, right? Perfect. Let's now proceed ahead. In the model tab of the date pane, in the model tab of the data pane, select the calculation item automatically created with your calculation group and replace. Okay, I think I did that. Okay, sorry. A new calculation item, right? So let's do a new calculation item. Say I want to define another calculation item. Right click, new calculation item. Tell what is your calculation item. Previous year. So whatever the measure I select, you tell me the previous year related calculation. Total sales, I tell you. Tell me the total sales of the previous year. Okay, so we are using a date function previous year, and we are modifying the filter context for the selected measure, whatever the measure we select. This is the DAX function, right? Selected measure. So I'm going to say, okay, previous year. Another one, yeah, third item with the proper DAX formula, year over year growth. Year over year growth. Third item, but what should be the name? Yeah, it will automatically create. Okay, perfect. Let's go here. So I'm going to say another calculation item I want to define. And this is my calculation item. Year over year, YOY growth. Calculate for the selected measure. So that we are now invoking a time intelligence function, same period last year. Whatever the period you select, yearly period, monthly period, quarterly period, return the division of selected measure minus the prior year and the prior year, because it's going to report it in the percentage. So in this year you have earned $1,200. In the previous year you had earned $1,000. So your growth is 20%. So it's going to just tell you that 20% division of the selected measure minus the measure of the previous year, right? Same period last year, and the measure of the prior year divided by that. Okay, the difference divided by the prior year. It's going to tell you how much growth did you make. for the same period, whatever that period is, right? Yearly, monthly, quarterly, whatever that is, right? So let's do that. Year over year, YOY growth. 3 calculation items in a single calculation group. Wonderful. Now, in the properties pane of the YOY item, enable dynamic format string as in this format, because we want to report it in percentage, right? We want to make sure that it is reported in the percentage. So year over year, go to its properties, go to its formatting and say dynamic format string. And what is your format string? Tell them the format string over here, whatever the format string you want. So I want this to be my format string. Copy that and punch it over here between the quotes. Perfect. The format string. 0 point number percent. So that will be up to 2 decimal places. It will give us the format. I'm going to say, okay, that's what I want. So when you're going to put it in the report, it will be in this format, 0.20 per 0.20, 0.30. That's perfect. Now let's apply this to the measure, right? Let's apply this to the measure. So now go to the report view back, right? Let's do another page. Let's do a new page. And here our calculation group is reflecting. I just need to add this calculation column. Calculation group, calculation column, and it has 3 items within it. One for the current year's growth, previous year's growth, and same period last year for the yearly calculations. Let's do a visualization of which kind, what kind of visualization? Metrics visual already created in the canvas. Okay, so on the overview page, you can use a new page also, but the instruction says use the overview page. Here is the metrics visualization that's already sitting, right? At the moment, if you observe, it is looking at total sales, profit margin as 3 columns. Now, if we were to ask previous year of this, previous year of this, previous year of this year, this year of this, and then same period last year of this, same period last year of this, same period last year of this, at least 9 measures have to be created. You need to create 9 measures, but we don't need to do that. I just add the yearly calculations and it will break it down, right? The measures that we have selected at the moment, total sales, profit, and profit margin, these are 3 measures that we have. It will break it down on whatever the calculation items are there in this calculation column. And here you do, breaks it down. I don't need to create so many measures. I will define a calculation group with calculation columns, with calculation items. And whatever the measures that I have in my visualization, they will be broken down accordingly. They will be broken down accordingly, right? So you have yearly calculation, previous year calculation, year over year growth, year to date calculations. So it breaks down that thing into the 3, whatever the 3 things you have, okay, in your calculation group. Says total sales have grown in this way, profits have grown in this way, profit margins have grown in this way. These are the 3 measures, and this is the year over year growth of all the 3. These are the 3 measures that you have. This is the previous year of all of them, right? And this is year to date for all of them. All the 3 measures, year to date. This is how much you have done in this year. I don't need to create 6 measures or 9 measures. So 3 measures, and this is a calculation, previous year calculation, you would have to do 3 measures for them. Year over year growth, 3 measures are there. So three measures here, and then 3 measures here, and this calculation on them. So again, 3 measures. So total 9 measures have to be done. But I did not do anything. I just defined the calculation group. We can also do calculation group using tabular editor, right? You can get tabular editor, download tabular editor, observe that now it breaks it down. It says, hey, there is no need for you to create so many measures. I'm going to break it down for you according to the calculation items in your calculation column in your calculation group. We can do calculation groups using tabular editor as well. Okay. In one of the examples, it will use the tabular editor. Now let's go ahead and let's see what this is. Create field parameters, sales figures, edit the field parameter. Let's do it, right? Create the field parameters. Let's go and create the field parameters to change the visuals. Okay, let's do that. Let's go to the modeling tab and expand the parameters. These are the front end parameters, right? These are not the back end parameters, which we use in Power BI, okay, query. So if I go to click on transform data and the parameters that we define over here, these are called the back end parameters, right? So we are not talking about these parameters here, right? We are not talking about even these parameters here. Okay, we are talking about the front end parameters, right? So model view and this parameter. Okay, this is not this parameter. These are different. Okay, so you want to make me use front end parameters. Yes. So let's go and select fields. Add parameters to visuals and DAX expressions so people can use slicers to adjust the inputs and see different outcomes. All right. What will your variable adjust? It will adjust a field. So what is the parameter through which they will be able to set the values for that? Select fields in the parameter window, rename it to sales figures. Let's rename that parameter, front-end parameter, to sales figures. And now add and reorder the fields. Okay, so in the parameters window, rename, verify that the option add slices to this page is checked. And add the following fields from the sales table in this order: total sales, profit, profit margin, orders. So let's go here. Okay, add selected fields from the field section. So total sales, profit, profit margin, and what do you want? Orders. Okay. Name of that is sales figure. And I think we have done it, whatever is requested. So these fields, we want our end users to be able to affect dynamically. They should be able to change their values. Verify that the option add slicer to this page is add slicer. I don't see that option for me. Where is that? Add slicer to this page. I don't see that option. Maybe the visualization is outdated. Field sales figure. This thing looks like is an old image that they are using, because we can see that we are not getting that option where it says that. Let's create that. We'll see in case there is an issue. Okay, because I also don't see any slider coming here. Okay, let's create that first. Sales figures over here. These are synonyms, row label. Let's now continue. Once the slicer is created, did it create the slicer or not? Let's see. Sales figure. Yeah, it created sales figure, and sales figure field, sales figure order. Yes, it created that. Yep. So what do we want to do? Once the slicer is created, you can create a matrix and remove all the fields from values in the visualizations pane and add instead the sales figure field parameter. Okay, understood what it means, right? Okay, so let's go to the report. Let's do a new page altogether. Let's do a metrics visualization on that. Okay, a metrics visualization, right? And column yearly calculations. So I want to do those previous year, year over year, year to date. But for what? We're going to leave it to the consumers of our report. that whichever you want, you can include it. So we're going to add sales figures into the value, right? Sales figures. Okay, we added that, but we don't see anything. Total sales, profit margin, orders, or something fishy is taking place here. Okay, let's do it in that visual. Just give me a second. Here we go. Remove them, which we had added manually, and we're going to say sales figures. Yep, it's working. Don't know why it's not working here. Yearly calculations for the sales figures. No worries, it's working there. Okay, in that one. So this time we don't have to manually add any of those columns. We don't have to manually add any of those columns. Now, what will be the benefit of this? It should allow users to filter it, right? That's what the thing is. So you put this sales figure in the values, check the different sales figures in the slicer, but I don't see the slicer popping up. It did not add the slicer to the page. Salesperson is there, year is there, but okay, 1 second. No. And when we created it, we did not get that setting. When we created that sales figure front end parameter, we did not get rename, move to, no, that did not pop. Essentially because of the same reason that I think when we went to the model view, we said we want to do a parameter fields, we did not get that thing here. Maybe I need to check my environment. Okay, it's a totally a new system that I'm using. It's not configured, right? I had to procure this system in a great hurry. No worries. I think we have understood the point that we want to communicate. The point is that this option, when you do a front end parameter, it's called as a front end parameter, right? So when we do a front end parameter, what it's going to allow us that is people can now go and essentially select what do I want? Do I want the previous year of total sales or not? That filter did not pop up on the page. Add the slicer to the page setting is not coming. See, this setting is not coming. That's why that slicer is not coming. Add slicer to this page. It's not coming. Verify that the option add slicer to this page is checked and add the following fields from the sales table. It's not there. Okay, but no worries. We can continue. We understood the point is that then the slicer would also appear, sales figure slicer, and we would be able to do that, right? Can we manually put it? Can we manually put the slicer, right? So let's put the slicer and manually put it. Let's see. Yeah, we need to manually put it then, right? If it is not automatically added, we'll manually put it. Let's see if it just, yeah, it says total sales only, right? Total sales and total profit only. And press control so you can select more than one. So this is what, so the benefit is, see, the lab is beautifully defined. The lab is beautifully designed. What they are trying to communicate is a calculation group and a front-end parameter makes the right combination. In this visualization, we did not manually add the columns like total profit and total sales and total margin and orders. All those measures we did not add. We leave it to the end users. We leave it to the consumers of the report. What columns do you want to see here? It's a beautiful feature. And again, whatever these calculations are, previous year, year over year, year to date, for all these measures, there is no one-to-one correspondence. I have not created one measure to do this, 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 one measure to do this. That would be crazy, right? Imagine a production grade, enterprise grade model. I have encapsulated my calculation logic just once. On the selected measure, it will automatically get applied, right? I have done that only once, right? So I have done it just once. Whatever the calculation item that I have, yearly calculations, I have done it just once. right? In the model here, you see previous year. This is the logic. Whatever the measure you select, the filter context will be previous year for it. Year over year growth, whatever the measure that you apply it on same period last year, then a division of the current versus the last year, prior year versus the current year. Okay. And then year to date, it will apply. So the right combination is that you do the calculation group along with the front end parameter. So when you go to the model, you have the front end parameters, right? I have told you that these are not backend parameters which we define over here. These are different. They are used in our Power Query editor. These are used in the front end side, report side. And this is one of the most beautiful feature of this, that you can adjust the fields that are used to build the visuals or are referenced in the DAX dynamically. So I'm not going to add so many columns over here in the values or measures over here in the values. I have dropped my front end parameter. I give you the option, you select it through the filter slicer, whatever you want to see. And that's the right strategy, right? This is the right strategy. This is good. This is the right strategy. Okay, let's take the format painter. Okay, format painter, go over here. No, I not. Select the visual, format painter, page overview, apply it here. Yeah, now you'll be able to see that. Perfect. Great. The combination of those things is what we want. In this task, you'll edit the sales figure parameter by directly modifying its DAX expression. Sales figures, okay. Select the salesperson performance tab at the bottom of the canvas. Okay, let's do that. Salesperson performance at the bottom of the page. Sales by month, target by month. Okay. Notice that the clustered bar chart to switch the chart between sales by month and target by month is given to us. Yes, it's given. Select the bar chart visual and replace the total sales field in the x-axis and sales figure field parameter. Select the bar chart. Where is the bar chart here? Just give me a second. This is not a bar chart. This is a clustered bar. Okay, this is the clustered bar. Okay, perfect. So replace what? Replace in the x-axis. Replace the total sales field in the x-axis with the sales figure. Okay, so remove this explicit measure, whichever you have put, instead put this thing, sales figure. And this should be added as a slicer here. It's not getting added, by the way. Right, so we'll manually add it as a slicer. So I'm going to say, I want a slicer on this over here. And the slicer would be essentially nothing but the sales figure itself. What do you want? What do you want? Okay. What do you want? I want just total sales. Now, essentially, what is this? Using it in a visual, right? Earlier, we were using it in the simple, matrix calculation. Now we are using it in a visual. Does not make any difference, right? Total sales on the yearly basis. What about sales by month? That filter is not going to propagate. Okay. Total sales. Okay. Total profit and total sales. Compare the two, because we know that the bar chart, this clustered bar chart, not the stack, the clustered one is for comparison. So we are now able to compare the two. Total sales and total profit. Better would have been to do a scatter plot between the two. Right, so let's rather create a new thing, do a scatter between the two. And the scatter would be between the value sales figure. So on the x-axis, the sales figure, the values rather. Okay. And again, the sales figures, again, the sales figure. Okay, no, it's not going to add. The reason is directly it's not allowing. So if you go over here to the sales and you say, I want to see profit on the x-axis and the what is total sales on the y-axis, and tell me the correlation by breaking it on the basis of the year. So my sales is increasing, is my profit also increasing year on year? This is how it looks like, right? There is no correlation as such. Here in the FY 2020, this is profit and total sales. In the year 2019, this is the thing, right? There is no correlation as such in this data. What about on the basis of the months? Monthly, again, no correlation. No worries, this data is a sample data. This data is not realistic. If you had realistic data, you would see that sales is increasing and profit is also increasing up to a certain level, and then it tapers out and then it starts falling, and then we place a tooltip of discount and we see whether discount is increased. Replace the total sales, create the slicer visual, drag that. We done that. For this visual, we still need to evaluate target by month, which is not in the field parameter. Okay. Okay, let's do that. So let's go back over here to the bar chart. Okay, bar chart, total sales, total profit by month, but it's not coming by month. It's not filtering it on the basis of the months. 2019, yeah, it's doing total 19, Jan, Feb, sales by month, target by month, sales by month. Okay, yeah. Jan, Feb, March, yeah, it's breaking it down. So then what do we need to do? Let's see that. For this visual, you still need to evaluate the target by month. That's what target by month is not happening, which is not in the field parameter, in the field. Okay, so let's select the sales figure parameter in the data pane and add the target field in the parameter, right? Where is the target field? Total sales, total profit, this target over here, target. Okay, so we need to add this thing, which whatever you're asking, month is sales is there, target is not there, target by month. Absolutely, the target is missing over here, so it's not going to break it down. Quite clear. You don't have target in what you just have dropped here, so how can I break it down by month for you? Isn't it? So let's add it over here. So this is essentially editing the front end parameter. So let's go back to the model, right? Let's go back to the model, and where is our front end parameter? Sales figure. Here is our front end parameter. So in the front end parameter, we'll just add one more row. Shift enter. If you press enter, it's not going to take enter. Shift enter, and then we're going to simply say I want to also break down the target. Okay, just currently not the field, just paste that out. Target column of the targets table, right over here as a sales figure up to 4 decimal places. Okay, that's what I want. Save. Done. So now what happens to the visualization? Targets pops up. So it can now break it down by target by the months. So you need to say I want to see targets, and it breaks it down. Targets by month, sales by month, targets by month, right? It's showing all the 5. You would say I just want to see targets by month, compare it with sales by month. What are the targets and what are your sales?
So that's a wrap. In today's video, we have learned how to design scalable semantic models using DAX functions, calculation groups, and field parameters. We explored how these tools can optimize your reports and simplify working with complex data scenarios. So if you're looking to take your career to the next level, don't forget to sign up for the free 90-minute Azure Data Masterclass that I mentioned earlier. You can register through the link right in the description below. And if you truly found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more such amazing content. And also definitely check out our previous videos right over here.